Hello everyone. So today I will discuss about the factory design pattern. It's one of the creational design pattern as we know. So this factory pattern is one of the most used design pattern in Java. The factory design pattern is basically used when we have a superclass and we are having a multiple subclasses that actually need to based on the inputs actually we need to decide actually which kind of object we need. So basically based on the input it will return one of the subclasses. So here as it is a creations of the object basically handled by this pattern, so that's why it belongs to the creational design pattern. Next, like how we are going to implement this factory design pattern in a real world. So for this, like we need to let's check this diagram. For example, initially we need to create one interface or maybe the abstract class. And for example, here as a vendor is the interface that in this diagram it's showing. So what actually it is doing in this method actually will create one method like get config. The parameter can be there or not, so that depends. So this interface actually basically implement by the other classes, subclasses here for example is the vendor 1, vendor 2 and the vendor 3. So once we will implement this particular vendor in this particular subclasses, then it will automatically going to override this get config method, right? And inside of this get config method we need to write our own logic based on the vendor. So basically that is the thing. Suppose we are having a multiple vendor, but the thing is that the functionality is only like each vendor having the configurations, but the configuration will be different. So in this scenario it will be different, right? So that's why this particular pattern is very useful in this certain scenario. Next, actually what we'll do, we'll need to create one factory class like vendor factory, and here actually we need to get the based on the input actually we need to get the particular class, so that can decision making is done by this factory class, vendor factory class. And the main method will be we will create the another class like the vendor service which having the main method, and from the main method we will actually call this factory class based on the input. So like uh, uh, this is kind of the benefit of this one. So here actually as you see means when I will implement in this in a a real world, then you will see like we are not having much of the if else. Instead of the if else it will automatically decide based on the situation. So let's take one example uh, how we are going to means in a real scenario how it is actually implemented. So let's say like we are having a we need to send one SMS, or maybe we need to integrate SMS in a real world applications. We need to send SMS, right? So this particular SMS basically is sent by the vendor. So for that we need to actually integrate this particular vendor in our systems. So in a enterprise applications or maybe any other applications we are having a lot of vendor, maybe 3 2 1 based on the load or something we are having. This happened actually. So based on some program we are having this vendor. So this vendor actually whenever we are integrate with this particular vendor, so there are certain things that we need to actually that those things basically need like URL for connecting this vendor, username, password, some other configurations like sender ID. Then there are from to from where it is we need to send the message and to which participant we need to send the message. So those kind of information we need to store. So maybe we are having those information into the database based on the vendor. So now the scenario is like maybe we are having a n number of vendor, just for example like vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3. So now based on the vendor we need to get those configuration from the database, right? So that's why I have tried to simulate the same problem in this picture also, and also in the I will create one program, and in this applications in the program also I will create the same thing so that it will be easy to understand. So this is the briefly introductions of this factory pattern, like how we are using and when we are using. So the benefit kind of thing factory pattern makes our code very robust actually. It's a less coupled and easy to extend, right? So this pattern actually, this factory design pattern is basically also used by this JDK, such as like instance method, get instance method of the calendar, number format, resource bundle. So this pattern is used, and also the value of method actually for the wrapper classes like integer, boolean. This particular double, this class is having this value of method. This is also widely very used actually. So this is the overall architecture. Now let's I will also create one program, Java program, simple Java program, so that it will be means easily we can understand those things like how it is behaving in a real world. Let's create one program for this one. So I've already created one, like previously I've already created one project, Java project. So as we are showing the demo previously. So now for this demonstrating this factory pattern, I have already created one package like this one, new package. No class is added currently. So let's try to implement the same as I was showing in the like diagram. So for this creating, what we need to do first, we need to create one interface. Let's create one interface for this one like vendor. Then inside of this interface actually we need to create one method like get config, so that it will face those configurations. And next we need to create actually three subclasses: vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3, vendor 4. Vendor 1, it should be implements the vendor. Okay, so now we should override this get config method actually, right? And this particular method actually what it will do, it will actually here actually will write the code write the code which will fetch the data from database or property file based on vendor, right? So for the time being what I will do, instead of fetching data from the database, I will just simply log in here. Okay, so it will, let's say, vendor 1 config called configuration is called. Okay, next we will create another class like vendor 2, and here we need to implement the same thing. Let's say this is a 2, next 3, here we can this 3. Okay, so this implementation is being done. Next what we will do, we need to create one factory class, right? So let's create new class like vendor factory. Okay, so here what we will do, we need to create one method public, let's say void get vendor. Okay, so here actually we need to provide one input. Let's say it's a string vendor. So based on this vendor actually, so here we can write like one if else or maybe the switch case. So let's write the switch case. Case. So let's say it's a v1. Then if it's a v1, then what we'll do, we will do like return new vendor 1. Okay, next what we will do, case, okay, there is a typo. If it is version 2, meaning we need to return new vendor 2. Similar, if it is a case v3, then we need to return new vendor 3. Okay, so this is done. And also like we will provide the default one. If it is default in this situation, like maybe we can throw the exception, illegal argument exception for example, and here we can invalid vendor plus vendor. Okay, okay, it will be return the vendor actually. Okay, now let's see what exception it is throwing. Okay, okay, now it is fine here. Okay, so now this is done, means based on the input, whatever the input we will provide here, so based on this it will return as the class, right? And then it will actually calling this particular method based on the okay. Now actually we need to write one main class, so from where actually we need to call this one. So let's create another class like vendor service. Here we need main, so create this one, delete this to do one. So what actually we'll do here, like we need to create one vendor factory equal to new vendor factory dot get vendor, right? And here actually we'll pass the v1 or v2 or v3, accordingly it will fetch us those things. So the return type would be like vendor. Next what we will do, we will do call the configuration get config. It will print those things. So let's say we have passed this v1, so what it will print, vendor 1 configuration is called, right? If it's a v2, vendor 2. Same if we pass this v3, it's a v3. Okay, so this is about this factory pattern. Let's pass this v4 which is not available, right? So it should throw us the exception, illegal argument exception, right? Invalid vendor 4. So this is invalid argument as we don't have this 4 one, right? So let's pass the positive scenario v3. So So this is now like working fine, right? Means in this way actually like we can't easily like integrate. You can easily actually called those like vendor 1 2 3. So based on this input, means here actually we don't need to like create instance over here, as we have following this factory pattern, so that from here it will just based on this input it will give us the object. Accordingly we need to work on this one. So this is actually very helpful to pattern whenever we are working in such type of situations or scenarios. In this scenario it will be like very helpful. And this actually, if you are going to use this pattern, then it's like makes our code robust, less coupled, and actually easy extend. So summarize to this one. So what we have learned so far. So this factory method design patterns, like how we are going to implement this one, what is the benefit of it. So I hope like I have assumed like using this tutorial you are getting all the like how like we are going to implement this one, what are the advantages of this one, of this design mechanism, right? In case of any like queries, please do comment so that I can answer those things. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next videos. The timing. Thank you. Bye bye.